Good morning, everybody, and a very warm welcome to Milton Hall and Districts. My name's Susanna, and I live with trains. And today I have a bonus video for you today. It's actually the container terminal special part 2. It was originally supposed to be in 2 parts, but now it's going to be in 3. The reason for this is because recently I've been rewatching Warren Lane, my Warren Lane playlist that I have, which is to do with the container terminal. And if you haven't heard of that layout, then it's been a big inspiration for my layout. And what happened was I wanted to sort of see what else I could add to my container terminal that I've got going on over there. And then I had a bit of a kind of light bulb moment when I saw the Freightliner truck, which Michael Lawrence replicated for me, and it had a container on it, and the container on it was actually weathered, and it got me thinking about weathering my containers, because now as I've been stacking them up, none of them are really weathered at all. There was a few, and I'll go through that in a moment, but it kind of showed to me, made me realise just how unrealistic it kind of looked, because it all looked really, really clean and really, really pristine and white. And with the exception of a few that were weathered, which were the 2 in the straddlers, and then there's a few others, and I will show you them now. So Dapol do both. Basically, I have 3 types of containers on my layout. I have some from Hornby. I have some from, 4. I have some from Hornby. I have some from Batman. I have some from Sea Rail and some from Dapol. Now, these 2 are actually pre-weathered and are from Dapol. So I haven't had to weather these at all. These are 45s. Foot containers, and these are nicely weathered, and you can see there's a slight discoloration of them, and they look really nicely weathered. However, there were some that I've seen from Dapol which apparently were weathered, but to be honest, it was so subtle you could barely notice that it was actually weathered. This is apparently a weathered container. This is a pristine container. I'm not too sure if you can sort of tell the difference, but one is probably a shade darker than the other, but in truth you can't really notice it that much. Now, the thing is, with most products that you buy, if you have an option to buy it pristine or weathered, you'll always find that the weathered examples are always more expensive. They charge you more. In the container world, it tends to be, I think it's about an extra £1, maybe slightly more, depending on where you go. Now, I'm going to show you how you can create a realistic weathered looking container and potentially save yourself quite a bit of money, depending on how many containers that you have. But I think generally speaking, it looks a lot better. Now, there are many ways of weathering containers, and you can use rattle cans. Some people might use an airbrush, and the thing is with those things, they can be quite messy, and also maybe there's fumes, maybe there's noise, but the way I've done it is I experimented with just 3 different types of colours, and I ended up with a fabulous result, which I'm going to show you. So this is a pristine one. As you can see, this is one that hasn't been touched at all, and it's exactly the same as this one, but this one has been weathered, and it's also got some rust marks, as you can see, and there's also some staining. And so there you go. So you go from, let me see, actually it's probably better I do it like that. Hang on a sec, that's better. So this top container that's been weathered and rusted, and stained was exactly the same as the one on the bottom. So if you want to know how to do that, then stick with me, because I will show you exactly how to do it. And the way I do it is a very simple way. Now, like I said, I'm not a weathering expert by any stretch of the imagination. I just decided to experiment with a container, and I thought, oh, this looks nice. Let me just carry on and dabble a bit more. And basically, it's come out like that, which I'm really, really pleased about. Now, what you'll need, you don't need an airbrush, you don't need a compressor, you don't need a paint booth, you don't need any rattle cans. All you're going to need is, and like I said, you can even use powders if you want to go down that way. Now, actually, funnily enough, whilst I went to see Paul this week at my local model shop, there was a gentleman in there, and whilst I was speaking to Paul about the weathering and getting some, how to create it and getting some rust colours and trying to work out what colours I needed and wanted, there was a gentleman in there who offered me some advice on how he does his. And so there's so many ways in which you can, and he actually suggested, I think it was MIG powders, and then using thinners and enamel thinners. And to me, that, I mean, okay, I'm really grateful for the advice, but to me that seems a bit more than what I can handle. I just want something really simple and really easy that anyone can do. And that's what I'm showing you, because there are probably many people who don't really want all that aggro, but might want the look. So this is a way of doing something that's relatively quick, relatively cheaply, and you get great results. And all you need is, like I say, 2 brushes. This is just an old, fun enough, if you've got a Works near you, you can go to Works and you can buy packets of brushes for about £2 or something like that, and you get a whole range of stuff. So I bought a load of brushes, and this is like one of the cheap ones, but that's all you need for this. But this one is very much more finer pointed one, and that's what you're going to need for like the rust and stuff, so you can really sort of like get onto those lines and things. And the 3 colours that I've used, one is, like I said, you might have these already. These are not colour specific. So, and what I mean by that is, if these are all I've got 1 acrylic and 2 washes. Now, the paint I'm using is this Rail Match Light Rust. There you go. That's the colour code for that. That's what that is, light rust. But like I said, if you've got something in your paint tin, and you know that's kind of similar in colour or something that you use, you can just as well use that. But I'm using acrylics. I tend to prefer to work in acrylics. I try and avoid enamels just because of the smell, and because it's all based, not really. I mean, I know some people sort of say that you get better results with oil for certain things, but I actually like using acrylics. And then I've got 2 Citadel washes, and they're both from the shade range. And this one is Cerepathia Sepia, which is like a sort of a brown, sort of muddy kind of wash, and it is a Citadel colour. And the other one is I think there's a little bit left in that, but we're going to go with this one anyway. And this one is also a Citadel colour in the shade, and this is called Nuln. Now this is like Tamiya panel, I think it's panel wipe or panel wash or something. It's pretty much the same thing. It's like a wash. So these 2 are like washes, and this one is a acrylic paint, and those are the only 3 colours. So let's get cracking then. So I'm just going to turn you down, and we'll get started. Now, the other thing I want to show you is some more containers arrived this week. So we have a total of another 8 containers. Now, all my containers, I always try and get different ones. And what I mean by different ones, I always try and get different companies and different logos, just so there's variety in a container terminal. So this one is a Dapol, and this is the Yang Min containers. Now they're both the same because it comes as a pack of 2. Now you could get the weathered versions of these, But like I said, the weathered version of these was so subtle you barely even noticed it, and you're just better off just weathering it yourself. And the way I've been doing it, I actually prefer now to do it myself. I then managed to get a hold of something that I've wanted to get for a little while, and these two are actually my only two Bachmann containers. Now these come as a pack of two, and they're 20 foots. Costco, so the two that I've just showed you are both 20 foots. And then I got an MSC, which was 40 foot, and these are not weathered. And then I got this one, which is De Facto, and these are weathered, but so I don't need to weather these. These are pre-weathered, and you can actually tell that they're weathered. They've just got a slight dusting over it, nothing major, but just a light dusting. But they didn't have. I actually wanted to try and get a non-weathered version so I could weather it myself, but they didn't have this in a non-weathered version, so I got a weathered version, so it kind of saves me some time anyway. But I just wanted to have some different containers on the layout. So those are those containers that I've now showed you and that I've got this week. So I'm not too far off. I need a few more 45 foot ones, and then that should be it. And then I should be done then. Right, so the first thing I want to do is we're going to just drop you down to here. Now, as you can see, there's actually 4 rather than 3, but there isn't much left in this one at all. This is actually some Nuln Oil as well. So I've actually got 2 Nuln Oil here because there isn't much. Because basically I used this whole one to do all the 40 foot ones already. So just give that a quick shake. So what you're going to do, it's very, very easy. Oh, well, this one isn't too clever. Right, let's try it like that. Okay, right, that's better. Like the whole lot came off. Right, so this is the shade Nuln Oil, which is what we're starting off with. That's the colour we're starting off with. And this is where we get the sort of cheap, nasty brush, as they say. And the first thing we want to do is make it look a bit more filthy. So what you do is, it's very, very simple. Now what I do is I start from the sides and then do the top last. And what you do is you follow the ribs. So you just go, as you can see, just follow the ribs all the way down and just paint it on. But what you do, as you can see, like you can see it, the difference already. But what you do is you just try and wipe as much of it off as you can and spread it about. But you can go as heavy or as light as you want. It's entirely up to you how you do it. And you can even get a J cloth if you wanted, or something, or a cotton bud, and wipe the excess off. But what I just do is just use the excess just to move it along. And as you can see, it doesn't really change. You're not covering up the letters or anything, but you're just smearing it and making it look basically generally more grubby. And it doesn't take very long to get through these containers at all. Usually when I do this, I do it in a batch. And you don't have to be that careful about it either. And when you sort of do it, it kind of looks a bit shiny at first, but when it dries, I'll show you what it looks like when it dries, because I've actually got one that I've actually done that I haven't actually done the rust on it, the rust effects on it. So you can sort of see straight away. And like I said, you don't have to be too careful with this. And you're just spreading it about, and like I say, it goes heavy or as light as you want. You can, there's no really rights or wrongs about it. I was actually looking at some of the prototype pictures, and some of these do get really, really filthy. And like I said, when you put these on a layout, just pristine, they really sort of almost stick out like a sore thumb. But what I did notice is that the one containers, and I actually weathered some in this wet manner, and I realised afterwards actually some of the one containers were actually quite clean. And as you can see, it's just making it more and more filthy. And that's, yes, that's already, so that end's done. Now if you can see just how filthy it is, but you look at the top, it's clean. So you can just see the colour difference already. So the ends. Now sometimes it can sort of, because it's a wash, it can seep towards the bottom end. Now some of the containers I actually leave it because I quite like it, because it gives it this kind of staining. So we've done that. Now I've just got to do the top. And then that'll be it. Then that's that container done. And that's all you have to do with a Nuln Oil. As you can see as I'm doing it, you can see the difference. And if you don't like it, you can just use a J cloth or something, and you can just wipe it off and wipe the excess off and do it like that. So it's entirely up to you how you do it, really. And like I said, this is just a cheap brush. It doesn't have to be anything expensive. And then, like I said, you can just leave it like that, but since I've just done the rest of it, I'll just take a slight discolor into that. That's it. So that's good. So that is that. And that's your Nuln Oil used. And that's simple as that. And then when it's finished, and once it's dried, it will look like this. This is one I did earlier, as they say, Blue Peter style. And this is totally dried, and as you can see, it's dried and it's mucky. And that's how it looks like. So once this dries, it will look very similar. I mean, it won't look exactly the same because the streaking pattern will be slightly different, but you get the general idea. This is how it's going to generally look. So we'll move on to this one in just a moment. So next on the agenda is to add some rust to this. Now you don't have to, like I said, you could just be happy enough with the Nuln Oil wash, which is what I did with a lot of them. And I'm really pleased with it just as it is. You don't have to. I mean, when you get a load of these containers all stacked up on the terminal and they're all filthy, it really does create a real realistic look. But I'm just going to have a go at doing this again. As you can see, it's sort of like a paprika colour, this kind of rust. And what you do is, now there's no rights or wrongs to any of this, but I found that a lot of the containers used to get very rusty on the corners, on the tops and on the corners, and then you might have a few spots on the side and stuff like that. So what we're going to do is just, it really doesn't matter, there's no real rights or wrongs about it, but by adding a few extra colours here and there, it really does sort of add to it. And like I said, you don't have to really be careful or bothered about the patterns because it's just totally random. And I just sort of, that's why I've got a fine brush, so you can really sort of get right onto the lines and right onto the corners. And like I said, I'm not really that overly fussed about it too much, because you can go as light or as heavy or as you want. And it's actually quite therapeutic, to be honest. So as you can see, I've sort of done some on the tops and that right in the corners. And then I'll put some random stuff. And then I'll just do some along here as well. It really doesn't matter, to be honest. It's just totally random. And then if you're happy with that, then you can just move on to the next stage, which is the Citadel Shades range, and it's the sepia. And it's a very sort of muddy, kind of wishy-washy. You think it doesn't make any difference, but it actually really great for the streaks. And I do it right. It's like I go right across it with the panel line on the top. You can barely notice it, but the thing is, by adding the rust, that gives you the more pronounced kind of rust colour, and then the lighter one just highlights it. It just kind of gives it a tinge without giving it colour, so it kind of looks murky without. And when it all dries, it will sort of dry with this kind of tinge to it. So you can see it's a way the rust sort of says to people, oh, this is where it actually started. And then the sepia kind of like creates this kind of tinge, which I really like, this kind of streaking effect that you get. I don't know how well you can see it, but like I said, again, you're going with the ribs. Don't go horizontally, just go with the ribs. You sort of see. It doesn't have to be precise, and you can sort of see the tinge. Oh, well, I hope you can anyway. I don't know how well it's coming out. Let me do the other side. And we'll go on the top. Yeah, there you go. So you can now see how it's just been kind of just give it a bit more along here, just to give it a bit of streaking along the bottom. Like I said, it's very hard once it dries, you'll really notice it, but whilst it's wet, it can be a bit hard to see the streaking, but I think you get the general idea of what you can do. Actually, that hasn't actually got anything on that end. But there you go, something like that. So something else I'm going to try with this one is, I haven't actually tried it anywhere else, so we'll try it and see how it looks, because I've seen it done, and we'll have a little look. We'll see if we put a patch on it to say it's been repaired. So I've just got some silver here. I don't know how this is going to work. Don't know whether to do it in silver or grey. Maybe I should have done it in grey, but I guess it's a new patch, so we'll try it like that. Yeah, that will do, won't it? And there you go, you can see that it's just been patched as well. So maybe they've done a bit of work to it because it was damaged or something like that, so they've just put a patch on it. That's quite cool, actually. I'll leave it like that and I'll see how I like it. So there you go. And I'll do one on this side as well. Yeah, is that a bit? You do sometimes see them where they've been repaired before. So you just do another one there. So that looks quite good. I like that. Okay. So there you go. Just some few simple steps on how you can make your containers a bit more realistic. Like I said, where were we before? Well, that was actually a weathered one. And you can't really, when you compare it to that one, you can see the difference straight away, that how much nicer this one looks, I think. But that's just my own opinion. So there you go. So that's how you do that. So that concludes the end of today's video, and I hope you've enjoyed that kind of mini sort of tutorial on how I do it. And like I said, you know, you don't need any compressors or airbrushes or anything. So if you haven't got any of that, don't worry, there are ways around it. And I hope you've enjoyed it, because now we've gone from sort of, this is, like I said, a weathered by Dapol, but then this is what we've just done, what I've just showed you, the original one with the normal oil. And then you go from that to maybe adding some rust streaks and rust effects on that one. And then on this one that I've just showed you, we've actually done a bit of a patch as well as the rust, some more rust. And like I said, it's totally random, so you just have a look at some photographs online, see what they look like generally speaking, how tatty they are, and just try and use it as reference. But hopefully that this kind of what I've shown you today is a bit of a guide on how you can actually make your containers look a bit more realistic and weathered. So until the next time, it's goodbye from Mildenhall and Districts, and my name is Susanna, and I live with trains. So goodbye, and stay tuned for part 3, which will be the game. So see you then. Bye bye.